What's up, y'all? It's your girl Jay Renee with Prison Riot Radio. I hope that you're doing well. This afternoon, we have a brother on the phone by the name of Reverend Keith F. Gatson, and he's going to talk to us about an injustice that happened to him years ago, but it still is definitely an injustice. So we're going to jump right into speaking with him. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm trying to hold on.
Right.
I recently did a rally on January 6th. That was my birthday with another guy named Nolan Farrell. And I will speak briefly about his. He was 18 years old, and they withheld evidence at his trial that his co-defendant was actually arrested and serving time in Virginia, and not in New York City, and in fact, they could not have perpetrated a crime with Mr. Nolan, and they knew that. But they took him to trial anyway. They withheld that evidence. And the Conviction Integrity Unit, they fully investigated, and they certified that it was correct, that his co-defendant was in fact incarcerated and could not have perpetrated that crime. And now this guy, the director, his name is Bryce Benjamin, he's abstained to vindicate him. And it's by a miracle, or said by chance, that I was standing in Al Sharpton's organization, and I was trying to get a rally going, and I overheard him mention that guy's name. And I questioned him about it, and he told me he withheld that kind of evidence. And I told him I had that kind of evidence also, you know. And so we joined forces, and we did a rally together this Saturday. Not Thursday on January 6th. It was a small turnout. It's not like I thought it was going to be. We were going to have a larger turnout, but it was small. And so I am grateful right now to have this interview with you, and I can only deal with the facts. Now, to my case, right?
Right. We got to talk to Mr. Nolan Farrell a few days ago. So we're familiar. Yeah, we just got acquainted with him. But I want to talk about. First, let me say I appreciate you, for bringing light to what's going on with him. But I want to get into with you. So can you tell us, the people, your name and where you're from?
Okay, my name is Reverend Keith F. Gatson. I'm ordained Reverend and licensed, and I'm also a Mason. I graduated from the New York Theological Seminary. I'm a canvas paint artist. I became a canvas paint artist. My artwork has been viewed in Washington, D.C. at a criminal justice convention. And then my artwork was recently viewed in the Museum of Modern Art, PS1 in Queens, Long Island City.
Right.
And ironic thing about it, that's where the homicide occurred.
Okay.
So,
you were. I know that you're saying, or that you're innocent. How many years were you incarcerated for this crime you didn't commit?
I was incarcerated for 32 years. I was sentenced to 20 years to life. I went to 7 parole boards. I started sending documents to Senator Velma Montgomery. And I explained the situation. I sent her the documents, a little bit at a time, not to bombard her with a lot of documents. They must have sat in a room together with other senators and discussed my case. And, in a rare move, on my 7th parole board, they called me to the counsel's office, and I had to sign the papers. I was endorsed for clemency. They believe that I was innocent because that's a rare move. They don't get involved with homicides and stuff like that. And I have enough evidence to show anybody my innocence in the atrocity that took place with my lawyer. My lawyer got me convicted.
I remember you was telling me about that. So tell us how, from the beginning, what happened and how you ended up in that position.
I graduated from the police academy in the 70s. In the 80s, I witnessed a homicide as a civilian. I chased that suspect 2 miles, And when I got to the precinct, the detective who was interviewing me, I was trying to convey what transpired, but the officer was trying to narrate his own story. Oh boy, what's going on with this phone? Try to narrate his own story. And I said, I'm trying to tell you what transpired, and you're trying to extrapolate information at the same time and writing what you want to write. And he said, well, you're the victim's pimp, aren't you? I said, nah, I'm not no pimp. I'm happily married to a registered nurse, and this is a buzzing sound I'm hearing. Are you there?
Yeah, let's disconnect and reconnect. Ladies pimp that testified against you. Hello?
And that I was a sanitation man. And then I said,
Hold on. Oh, now I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
All right.
So I told him I didn't want to speak to him no more, the detective, right? He got disgruntled about that, and he went into a file cabinet and got retrieved a camera. And he said, stand up. And he took a photograph of me. And through my legal research, that was a civil rights violation because I was never arrested for any crime.
Mm-hmm.
After I had an argument with the trial just because I didn't want the lawyer to represent me. When I first met this lawyer, his name was Morris Mursky. I reached into my pocket and got two business cards. An attorney from Queens County and another attorney from Bronx County, criminal lawyers. I gave them to him. I said, call these two lawyers. They will tell you that I made appointments with them and they threatened to put a murder on me. And I asked them to testify to what I was saying to them. I was, telling them.
Mm-hmm.
He took the two cards, and when I had the grand jury proceeding, I had my head turned, looking for my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the judge said, are you ready for the grand jury proceeding? He said, exclude. So I turned around, and I said, I want to go to the grand jury. I want grand jury. Now, I'm going to tell you, that's the most crucial part of any arrester, to fight against an indictment.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough evidence to show a conspiracy. They planning this stuff on me, right? And I had my alibi witness, right, who's a doctor, a wife, a widow, and she's a friend of the famous jazz musician Ruth Ellington, who came to testify, after I got indicted at my trial. I was painting and plastering her house for her birthday party, and that she was going to have a Eastern Star meeting with Ruth Ellington. The Eastern Stars, right? They go to each other's homes and have their meetings, right? And so she said she remembered the evening very well because my friend had called me, invited me to a birthday party, and I had turned that down. I told my friends that I had too much work to do. I can't. I got it. Because I was painting and plastering the ceiling, right? And I was sanding it, and I had a lot of sand dust in my face, in my hair, and all that, right? And so I didn't want, to stop work. I didn't go nowhere. I think I went to the store, got some cigarettes and a can of beer or something. I was drinking back then, smoking cigarettes. And so anyway, she testified to that during my trial. To speed this up, there was no evidence whatsoever. The women, they proclaimed that me and my co-defendant took this man's car after shooting him, right? But she never said she saw us get in the cab, right? This man's cab. Now, the guy had a cab, right? She said it was a yellow cab with the Marlboro advertisement on the roof. The guy that got murdered, his car was black, a private-owned cab. She didn't know where the homicide took place on the homicide map. she hung and hemmed and, out of frustration because the lawyer urged her, said, Your Honor, would you tell her to make an X when she said she saw this? She said, I don't know, somewhere in the middle. She went back to the stand. The lawyer asked her, said, wait a minute, you don't know the color of the cab. He says yellow cab, but the cab actually, the victim's cab was black, private owned cab. And now you said somewhere in the middle. Didn't you know it was 15 feet at the far end of the corner? He said, wait a minute, did somebody make a deal with you to testify against these defendants? She said, yeah, but I wasn't supposed to go like this. The DA jumped up out of his seat like a jack in the box and shouted, I object, Your Honor. The judge tilted her eyeglasses and pointed to the stenographer and said, strike that from the record. Jury disregard this witness testimony. We're going to adjourn this case over the weekend. You are not to discuss this case with anybody, and if anybody is to approach you about this case, you are to let us know immediately, and you're not to visit the area where this situation took place. As soon as they left, they ran into the judge's chambers, and they was arguing and carrying on. And me and my co-defendant said, oh, wow, we used curse word back then, the S word, right? They made a deal with that, so-and-so, right? And so when they came out of the room, out of the chambers, my lawyer had his necktie draped across his shoulder, right? And his hands were shaking. And I said, what happened? He said, no, don't worry about it. As he's putting the documents into his briefcase. Now, me and my co-defendant was denied looking at the documents pertaining to the case. They never gave us the documents until after we got convicted. They denied my co-defendant an opportunity to introduce his alibi witness, which was the security guard where he lived at. Okay? They denied him that. So, I discovered that they had a detective come in and testify that they couldn't find fingerprints off the surface of the cab. When I examined the documents, I discovered that man who testified, he was an imposter. He was not the fingerprint technician, and they did find fingerprints, and they were evaluated between me and my co-defendant and I, and they was negative. My co-defendant lawyer and my lawyer had the documents to disprove what this guy was saying. If they didn't do that, right? So now it was about it. I'm gonna say this. I'm a religious man. I became religious. What and the Bible says, what's done in darkness will come to the light. And it came to the light during my trial. There was a man who called 911 for the victim. He saw the victim. He thought the guy was hit by a car. He didn't know the guy was shot in the head. But he called 911. He rode off on his bicycle to call 911. And he said that he went back to the scene of the crime. And there was a camera, video. And the two lawyers sat mute. They didn't ask to view the video. My co-defendant is telling his lawyer he wasn't there, and I'm telling my lawyer I wasn't there. They didn't ask to view the video, which would have cleared us. Okay? Now, I want to say this. Or go to any kind of criminal law, paralegal, whatever. The first thing they learn, one-on-one, Brady material in a trial, before a trial, the start of a trial, the district attorney must disclose anything that's favorable to the accused or unfavorable to the accused. Now, let me explain that. If it's unfavorable, if it's a mountain of evidence against a defendant, they're supposed to disclose it to get a guy or female an opportunity to cop out. It's called plea bargaining. Okay? So now, if it has a tendency to prove innocence, they must disclose that so that the defendant can use that that information to try to get an acquittal. So in my case, they withheld the surveillance camera. And they all knew, the judge, the DA, the lawyer, right? See, now, I'm going to say, what compelled this man to go back? To go back to the scene of the crime. He only called 911. He didn't see anything. That was God. And he brought it to light because they didn't never even ask no question about that. They didn't question him about no surveillance camera. He volunteered this information.
Right.
You understand? That had to be God. And the dark, what they did in the dark, it came to the light right then and there. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And so they continue to withhold the surveillance camera. Okay? Even to this day. When I first went after it, under the Freedom of Information Act law, they said my entire case file was lost. Now, how does my entire case file get lost out of the DA's office? I go to the police department. The police department don't even respond. Okay? So now, years later, I go for it again. Because I figured those people, the DA, he's either dead or he's retired or he's in or they're in a nursing home, a babbling idiot. So I went after it again. They found the box, but the surveillance camera wasn't in the box. So I said, these people must think I'm stupid. Where's the paperwork? Somebody took my mugshot and they did an evaluation with me and my co-defendant, mugshots. So I went back for that. Now all of a sudden they don't want to respond. Okay? September. Past September, I did another Freedom of Information Act request. They're saying that the same thing. That, they got thousands of documents and they need more time to look for it, blah, blah, blah. It's September. They still haven't come back with any information concerning my request for the surveillance camera. And I want to say this. A guilty person is never going to ask for no surveillance camera. And the fact that they violated a constitutional United States Supreme Court precedent, Brady versus Maryland, they are supposed to vindicate me because they didn't disclose it or give me another trial. But it's just too much that I know too much about this case now.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is how I get convicted. There's no evidence. I'm thinking, and my co-defendant, we thinking we going home. This sold-out witness is a crackhead, drug addict, prostitute on life basis for drug trafficking. And we discovered that she had another drug trafficking case pending, right? And so I told my co-defendant, he died in jail, right? Mm-hmm. I said, listen, I don't blame that woman for testifying. She was facing 20 years, 25 years to life herself. And she had 4 or 5 kids. Under those circumstances, she would have probably said her mother did that crime. So, and then before she testified, they asked for a 15-minute recess. And they was escorting me and my co-defendant back to the holding detention cells. And as soon as we entered the door, I observed them a few feet away, unhandcuffed her, and one of the detectives told her, that's Keith Gatson and that's William Bradley, pointing to us who to identify in court. Okay? I have police reports that says that she was on a night that she was interviewed by an officer. She told one detective that she didn't see anything. This detective who threatened to put a murder on me, right? He took my mugshot to her residence. She didn't ID me. Then he showed her my ID at the precinct. Now all of a sudden she IDs me, right? Now I look at the grand jury narration of what she said. She's given both our first names and our last names, Keith Gatson and William Bradley. But at trial, she looked at the only thing that implicated me to that homicide was a false police report. He said that she told him Keith the sanitation man was there, and that she went home and she came back and saw them putting the victim in the ambulance. She looked at it during trial and she said, "Oh no, I didn't tell him Keith the sanitation man was there because I didn't know the defendant's name." Well, how did my name get involved? That detective, they told him it was strategic not to come to court because they knew I was going to jump up and I was going to scream and shout, "You're a liar. You threatened to put a murder on me on the night that I witnessed that homicide and chased that guy in 1982. You threatened to put a murder on me. You see? And you had me assaulted. You see? So they told him, oh no, because I had an argument with the judge. I said to the judge before the commencement of the trial, I don't want this lawyer to represent me. And I said he refused to give me the documents pertaining to the case. And I believe I said that he denied me the right to testify at the grand jury. I don't want him to represent me. I want another lawyer.
Right.
All she said was, "But Mr. Muskie, will you give him the documents to the case?" He said, he just shook his head, "Yeah, okay, yeah. But I know me and my co-defendant was denied the documents, right? So, they knew. When she said that, I started screaming at the judge. I said, you trying to railroad me. I know what y'all trying to do. Y'all trying to railroad me. She said, if you say that one more time, I'm going to hold you in contempt. I said, hold me in contempt. I'm already held in contempt. I have no bail, and I got a lawyer standing beside me. I don't want him to represent me. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Right? And so I couldn't get rid of him. Right? But they knew if that officer would have came, I was going to jump up in front of that jury to help my guard. They knew that I was going to do that. You know, I was bold enough to talk to the judge like that. Imagine if this guy actually framed you. You ain't going to sit there and be quiet about it. I'm going to jump up and let the jury know that this man threatened to put a murder on me.
Right.
They didn't want that, so he that was strategic not to bring him in. And they have a case in the Supreme Court of the United States that I have a right to confront my accusers. Absolutely right. Okay? And, of course, if she didn't say, she didn't know my name, how did my name get involved with this? And how did you spelling out my name, or my first name, my co-defendant's name, first and last name at the grand jury? You understand? And so, this is how we get convicted. Now, again, I'm thinking, well, she don't know the color of the cab, right? And she don't know where the murder took place on the single map. It shows that she didn't see a homicide, right? And they had a discrepancy about the distance. This was emphatically impossible for anybody to make an eyewitness, you know, or at that distance, right? And so, in the summation of my lawyer, he sold me out. Now, my alibi witness, her name was Dorothy King. She's the widow of a medical doctor and a friend of Bruce Downton. Never been involved in any arrests or police. She did a decent life all her life. And she testified that I was home plastering, like I told you earlier. So, my lawyer says, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in his closing argument and summation, he said, you heard the testimony of the sole eyewitness, Jenny Medina. Well, you heard that. And you've seen my client here, Keith, here several days, and his client, and his co-defendant, William Bradley. And my client introduced an alibi witness. Right after he mentioned her name, Dorothy King, he waved his hand down, a body gesture that it was a lie. And he screwed up his face, right? Then he walked over to my co-defendant and he stuck his index finger in my co-defendant's face about 2 or 3 inches away. And he said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I submit an affirmative defense that my client never knew that William Bradley possessed a gun and was going to intentionally shoot and kill the deceased. I submit, ladies and gentlemen, that you cannot convict my client of intentional murder. I rest my case. That's how I got convicted. He made it appear that I told him that I was there.
Right.
Okay? That's how we got convicted. Now, they found me, they acquitted me of intentional murder and found me guilty of felony murder, still stemming from a robbery that was never even proven. She didn't say that she saw me and my co-defendant get into a cab, this man's cab, right? A car, right? And so they convicted my co-defendant of the entire indictment. They gave him 25 years to life. That's how we got convicted. My lawyer sold me out. And, you know, you get entitled to one appeal, you know, with a lawyer, okay? I was telling my lawyer, the appeal lawyer, to put a claim of ineffective assistance of counsel. But I'm going to tell you something. These lawyers here in New York City would not go against another lawyer.
I believe
in their claim of ineffective assistance of counsel. They need to change all this. When civilians make a complaint against a lawyer, judge, or police officer or whatever, they do internal investigations. Lawyers investigating lawyers, judges investigating judges, police investigating police, district attorneys investigating DAs, and correctional officers investigating correctional officers. And so your complaint don't go nowhere. They're not going against each other. They do not go against each other. And if somebody was to do research or claim an ineffective assistance of counsel, that's a very rare thing that another lawyer would go against another lawyer. A very rare thing. So you got thousands of people proclaiming every year. Every time they go to the parole board, they're saying they didn't do it. And the parole commissioners is saying, oh, stop. We're not here to retry your case. They don't want you to tell them the facts that you're innocent. And so I went to 7 parole boards saying I was innocent, irrespective to knowing that, you know, they got something saying that you got to show remorse. But you cannot show remorse if if you're innocent. You cannot show remorse. You cannot say that I'm sorry for what I did. I was wrong. You cannot say that because you didn't perpetrate that crime. But what you're trying to tell them, the facts of what I'm telling you right now, and they don't want to hear it. And they'll deny you. But I think that they put that in place to keep your mouth shut. They don't want that. So they'll continue to deny you parole until you drop dead or get murdered in the prison system. You know? And they use that as an excuse. Oh, well, he doesn't show any kind of remorse. He was convicted by the peers. And then the other thing is, they came into court. My appeal lawyer argued uncharged crimes. They were telling the jury that we were pimps. Nobody don't like no pimps. These are hard-working people. You mean to say these womanizers? These 2 guys are womanizers. Oh, man, they did it. That's the attitude, right? And then they getting white jurors, right? And I overheard one of them said, you know, oh, man, they look like they did it. They didn't hear nothing about the case. Nothing.
How can somebody look like they did it? That's profiling. Why? Because y'all were black?
Yeah, exactly. They ain't going by no evidence. You understand? And then they said that to inflame the jury, they said my co-defendant snatched this man out of his car and pistol whipped him. That was an emphatic lie. Because I got proof that they don't want to, let me know that, this is the fact, you're right, that I'm right. When I was in the house of detention, I played basketball. And we was in the gym. And my co-defendant, he did a bid before, and all he did was he lift weights all day and crack jokes all day. His arms were so big and his hands were so humongous, maybe 3 of mine almost. They had to use those handcuffs. Those iron ankle, those ankle handcuffs are much bigger than handcuffs because the regular handcuffs didn't fit his wrist. And I observed my co-defendant do reps with 315 pounds like it was nothing. His chest was big, arms was big, huge. Okay? Now look, they said my co-defendant pistol whipped this guy. When I looked in the autopsy reports and I observed, I said, what? My co-defendant could not even possibly hit this man in his face with a gun or steel object. He would have broke the bones in this man's face. A gun is made out of steel. The biggest injury to that man's face was 3/4 of an inch. And he had 2 more, looked like fingernails going down. So I did a written deposition to find out, was this man pistol whipped or was he actually scratched from the abrasions and a small contusion, right? They refused to respond. They refused to respond. Okay? The medical reports now, the hospital that he was at, they never responded either. They didn't want me to prove, man, y'all went to the grand jury with a bunch of lies, man, to procure an indictment. Now, what's this? They originally locked my co-defendant up in his girlfriend when they kidnapped me off the streets without a warrant, okay? All right, so they questioning me, right? And they try to get me to say that I saw my co-defendant perpetrate that crime for my release, right? I said, man, listen, I don't even like them. I don't hang out with them, but I'm not going to lie on them to say I saw them do nothing. And so they had the nerve to send me to a black detective to speak to me. He had his feet up on his desk, right? I'll never forget it. And they said, listen here, brother, man, if you don't go along with us, I'm stay for a long time. I said, man, like I told those officers, I didn't see them perpetrate no crime. I'm not going to lie on them under any circumstances. Now, you lock me up for this, or let me walk out of this precinct. So they locked me up. So the rest was history. And so I had my co-defendant had sent me an affidavit from his girlfriend, right? So now they released her. They let her go. They took her to the DA's office. But none of this, came out at my trial, right? And because the DA's opening statement said that he was going to have her come in and testify against me and my co-defendant. Now, I'm going to say this before I read what she wrote. He wasn't going to call her because she was going to be a hostile witness. She was going to say, oh, man, they locked me up for this stuff, and they locked my husband up, they found out I was somewhere else, and I told them that my husband didn't have nothing to do with that, and they taking him to trial, they took him to trial, kept him locked up, all that. So they didn't want her, so the DA lied and kept on saying that she was the woman who got out of the cab moments before the shooting took place, and she was the woman who set that robbery murder up. And then they labeled me and my co-defendant pimps. I was never arrested for no pimping. And so my appeal lawyer, he litigated uncharged crimes uncharged crimes. Okay, now this is what she says in her affidavit that she gave to my co-defendant that my co-defendant gave me before he died. I, Sharon English, being duly sworn, deposes and says, 1. I reside at 3595 State School Road, Albion Correctional Facility, Albion, New York, 14411. 2. That the contents of this affidavit will be my written testimony for the case of William Bradley. 3. On July 2nd, 1986, I was picked up by police of the 108 Precinct, Queens, and taken to Jamaica Supreme Court. I was questioned by D.A. Sal Landau about the murder of Casio Darizio. 4. The DA asked me the relationship of William Bradley and myself. I told him that we had lived together as husband and wife with our 3-year-old daughter. He then asked my and William's whereabouts on the night of October 10th, 1985. I told him that I was at my mother's house and that William was home at 30 Hamilton Place, Manhattan. The district attorney then asked. 5. What happened on the night of October 10th, 1985? I told him that I didn't know that. I wasn't there. I also told him that William and I did not know anything about this incident until the police arrested us. Okay? The district attorney then asked me if I ever knew William to rob or beat anyone up. I told him no. Then he asked me if William and I were friends with Keith Gatson. I told him we knew him casually. William and I did not care for Keith Gatson personally. 6. The district attorney asked that I think William was guilty, and I said no. I told him, the DA, I know William and had anything to do with this murder, and that I know William did not do it. 7. I, Sharon English, swear that the information I've given is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Sharon English. You see, they didn't want this disclosed to the grand jury. They knew that she was going to come up with this, and so, but they lied and said that she was the woman who got out of the cab, and she was going to turn state's evidence against us. Now, how could she turn state's evidence against me and my co-defendant when she done told the DA that she wasn't there?
Right.
And they knew that. Okay? So now, I'm going to read the contents of one of the lawyers who I went to and told him about a threat before a homicide ever took place. Okay. Eric S. Anderson, an attorney admitted to practice in the courts of this state, does hereby affirm under the penalties of perjury that the following statements are true to the best of my knowledge. 1. On or about July of 1985, Mr. Gatson visited my office, whereupon Mr. Gatson informed me of a threat to frame him on a murder charge, and moreover requested me to testify as to the following information should officers of the 108 precinct ever arrest him on a murder charge. At the time, I was representing him on a different matter. 2. Mr. Gatson asserted that one of the officers of the 108 precinct told him, Keith, we don't like you, you're a pimp. We don't like nigger pimps. If we catch you back in Long Island City and we have a murder investigation, you did it. Mr. Gatson complained of numerous arrests, assault, and harassment by officers of the 108 precinct. I advised him to stay away from the area. 4. On or about October 1985, Mr. Gatson called me from the Catholic nun's office on Rikers Island. He asked me if I remembered his meeting with me and other officers' alleged threat to frame him on murder charges. My response was, yes, I did. He paused and began crying that they had arrested him for a murder. I advised him to have his attorney contact me. 5. I later received another telephone call from Mr. Gatson. he informed me that he was indicted by the grand jury and requested me to testify at his trial concerning the aforesaid mentioned meeting and telephone calls. I had advised Mr. Gatson to have his attorney subpoena me. 6. Mr. Gatson called me on another date and informed me that his lawyer was reluctant to subpoena me for his trial, that my testimony would be inadmissible. I told Mr. Gatson the only way I could testify is by subpoena. Have the attorney call me. 7. I had the occasion to be in the Supreme Court building one day and saw Mr. Gatson being escorted by court officers. He told me that he was on trial. Could I please locate his lawyer and ask him to subpoena me? 8. Mr. Gatson has requested me to testify on his behalf as here set out. However, I do not have any first-hand knowledge of the alleged threats to Mr. Gatson by police officers. I only know what Mr. Gatson told me himself. Attorney Judith Peeble of the Criminal Appeals Bureau recently spoke with me concerning the above mentioned. Dated Queens, New York, November 22nd, 1989. Eric S. Edelstein, Esquire. Now here's the other lawyer. Bob H. Pop Esquire affirms under the penalties of perjury pursuant to CPL 2106 that 1. I am an attorney at law duly admitted to practice in all trial courts of this state. 2. I have previously represented Keith Gatson as a result at some time, which I believe to have been in the early part of 1985. Keith Gatson came to my office with the Legal Aid Society's Criminal Defense Division at 1020 Grand Concourse, Bronx, New York, and in an obviously agitated state, told me that if he did not cooperate with them in a matter, the nature of which was not specified to me, they would put a body on him, an expression which was known by me to frame him with a murder charge. Sometime shortly thereafter, I was informed that Mr. Gatson had, in fact, been charged with the murder. Dated Bronx, New York, the 31st day of October 1989. Okay, now here's a trial testimony of the sold out witness. She says, after reading that document, I still stick to what I had told Detective DeLuca. Now, this is DeLuca, the detective who framed me. I had told Detective DeLuca that I did not know the names of the defendants. So I didn't put my name involved in this case. Okay, now I wanna read another affidavit. I gotta get my hand on it.
All right.
Okay. To whom it may concern, affidavit. The following statements are true. 1. My name is Kim Allen Howard. 2. I called Keith Gatson October 10th, 1985 at Mrs. King's apartment to invite him a birthday gathering. Mr. King said that Keith is working around the house for a club meeting. I called during the evening. October 10th is my birthday. 4. My attempts to offer my testimony in his behalf was met with the statement, your testimony would not be needed by his attorney. 5. Keith informed me several times that Queens detectives had threatened to put a murder charge on him. I suggested he contact a lawyer to protect himself prior to October 10th, 1985. Respectfully, Kim Allen Howard. Now I'm going to say this. Why did he tell my, he was going to be able to corroborate?
Right.
You understand? And when I told him, he's a probation officer also, right?
Mm-hmm.
And family division. When I told him that they threatened to put a murder on me, he said CYBA. I said CYBA. He said, yeah, cover your black A.
Right.
Right? said, he said, you better tell a lawyer. Instead of telling one lawyer, I told 2 lawyers.
Right.
Okay, just in case something happened to one lawyer, I have another backup. Okay? So now, this is the contents I want to read of my alibi witness. It says, the court, she's going to answer it. I want her to answer that question. When for the first time did you recall October 10th, 1985? May I say this? The witness said, right? Mm-hmm. The witness is saying, when his boyfriend called and said he was having a birthday party that night on 10th of October, that was his birthday, and I said, you have to do your work first before you go to the birthday party. That's when I recalled it. What is that name of that boy? Alan. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it's more when it says her husband was a physician, a doctor, medical doctor. All right. Yeah, and it says another transcript says, well, so would you tell the ladies and gentlemen about that day and that evening? Well, on 9th October 1985, I was having some work done, painting, plastering, and cleaning because I was expecting a club meeting on a Saturday. So I had proof, and I had someone to corroborate her testimony, but my lawyer came up with that submission, in the submission to get me convicted. So now, in 1997, I did a Freedom of Information Act request. And this is the letter they sent me. Dear Mr. Gatson, this letter is to certify that despite a diligent search, we are unable to locate the trial folder for this case. Because the folder is lost. Your FOIA request dated February 3rd, 1997 cannot be satisfied. Now, how did the surveillance camera and all the documents in my case get lost in the DA's office? Huh? Wickedness in high places. They covering it up. And this guy who's supposed to be handling my investigation, his name is Bryce Benjamin. I told him, I said, man, listen, man, they covered up my case for over 30-something years. Those people who handled my case, they were in their 60s then, okay? Those people are either deceased, retired, or they're in a nursing home, a babbling idiot. Right. Okay? And I'm going to say this. It doesn't make any sense for me to continue covering up this case. No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, here it is. 2015. I go for it again. And this is what it's saying. This letter is in response for the surveillance camera again. This letter, this is what they're saying. This letter, let me start. Mr. Gatson, this letter is in response to your letter dated March 31st, 2015. Seeking documents from the above reference matters, specifically a copy of the camera surveillance video or film footage of the crime incident. For the reasons that follow, your request is hereby denied. An agency is not required to create new records or compile data from documents in its possession, but merely to turn over records which already exist. Right? And he's talking about some kind of laws here. Indeed, an agency is under no obligation to furnish documents which it does not possess. Similarly, the Freedom of Information Law is not a vehicle under which an agency is required to any questions, but instead is only a means by which an individual may seek existing records. Here, A search of our records revealed that we do not possess such surveillance video in the file. Therefore, this request is hereby denied. So, now, when they sent me this letter, I said, yo, they must think I'm stupid. I went back to them and said, well, where is the paperwork? Somebody had my mugshot and they did an evaluation. Where is the paperwork? Now, all of a sudden, they don't want to respond. And I submitted this in September, and they responded to this in November. And after I wrote them back, requesting for the paperwork, I haven't heard a thing, anything else from them.
Oh man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Mm-hmm.